Welcome to Sleepy Stories, the place where stories aren't meant to be finished. I'm Arthur, and tonight I'll be reading you a relaxing, sleepy story written by Pumby. We're heading somewhere the world moves slower, where nature sets the rhythm and time itself seems to stretch and soften. Let your shoulders drop, uncross your legs, and allow yourself to simply be here. There's nowhere else you need to be right now. The coastal path appears before you just as dawn begins its gentle arrival. You've come to a place where the ocean meets ancient cliffs, where rain arrives not as an interruption, but as a companion, where every sound seems designed to quiet the noise inside your head. The air here tastes different, salt and petrichor mixing into something that makes you breathe deeper without trying. Your feet find the sandy trail almost instinctively. The path winds along the shoreline, close enough to hear the waves, but high enough to see the endless expanse of water stretching toward the horizon. Grey clouds hang low this morning, pregnant with rain that hasn't quite decided to fall. The light is soft, diffused, turning everything into watercolour versions of themselves. Each step releases a soft crunch beneath your shoes. The sound creates a rhythm, steady and unhurried, matching the pace your body wants to move at naturally. There's no destination marked on any map, no arrival time to meet. This path simply exists for the walking of it, for the being on it. The first drops of rain touch your face so lightly you almost think you've imagined them. But no, there they are again, tentative, exploratory, testing the air. Within moments, the rain finds its confidence settling into a steady whisper against your jacket, against the rocks, against the surface of tide pools, collecting in the hollows of ancient stone. You pause to watch the ocean. The waves arrive in sets, each one building from nothing visible into rolling walls of dark water that curl and collapse in white foam. They hit the shore with sounds that vary, sometimes a deep boom against cliff faces, other times a softer rush across pebbled beaches. The rhythm isn't mechanical. Each wave carries its own personality, its own timing. Yet together, they create something that feels like breathing. The rain intensifies gradually, never rushing into a downpour, but thickening into something more present. It creates layers of sound, the patter on your hood, the whisper through coastal grasses bending in the breeze, the distinct tapping against flat rocks, worn smooth by centuries of exactly this. You pull your jacket closer, not from cold, but from the pleasure of feeling sheltered while remaining outside, of being both in the weather and protected from it. A wooden bench appears around the next curve, positioned perfectly to face the water. Someone placed it here years ago, understanding exactly what this spot offers. The wood is dark with age and moisture, weathered into something that belongs here more than any human structure should. You sit, and immediately the world shifts. Standing, you are moving through the landscape. Sitting, you become part of it. The rain on the ocean's surface creates a texture you can see from here. Thousands of tiny impacts stippling the water, making it dance and shiver. Where waves swell upward, raindrops hit the curved surfaces and scatter into mist. Where the water lies flat between swells, each drop creates its own expanding circle, overlapping with countless others, into patterns that form and dissolve too quickly to fully comprehend. Your breathing has changed without you noticing. It's deeper now, slower, matching some unspoken cadence the environment sets. The rain continues its steady percussion. The waves maintain their patient arrival and retreat. Somewhere above, a seabird calls, a sound both lonely and perfectly content with loneliness. The cliff face to your left shows layers of stone stacked like pages in an ancient book. Water trickles down the rock in thin streams, finding channels carved by countless rains before this one. Moss clings to shaded sections, impossibly green against the grey stone. Small plants you can't name have found purchase in cracks, their roots somehow extracting life from what looks like solid rock. You notice details you wouldn't have seen if you'd walked past. A tide pool near the bench holds an entire world. Anemones waving tentacles in water that surges and recedes with each wave. Small crabs moving sideways across algae-covered stones, a starfish clinging motionless to the pool's edge. The rain adds fresh drops to the salt water, each impact creating a tiny fountain. Time does something strange here. You can't tell if you've been sitting for 5 minutes or 50. The distinction stops mattering. There's only the rain, the waves, the grey light that somehow contains every colour if you look at it long enough. Your mind, usually so busy cataloguing and planning and remembering, finds itself with nothing to do except be present for this. The temperature sits right at that perfect point where you're neither warm nor cold, just comfortable in a way that makes you forget about your body. The rain has soaked into everything now. Your jacket beading water, the bench darkened beneath you, the path ahead glistening, but you're dry enough, comfortable enough, exactly where you need to be. Another set of waves builds offshore. You watch them approach, these moving hills of water that have travelled perhaps thousands of miles to arrive at this exact shoreline. At this exact moment, they peak, curl and collapse into foam, the sound washing over you like the water itself. The path continues ahead, disappearing around another bend where more cliffs rise into the mist. You'll follow it soon. Welcome to Sleepy Stories, the place where stories aren't meant to be finished. I'm Arthur, and tonight I'll be reading you a relaxing, sleepy story written by Pumby. We're continuing our journey along a misty coastal path, where rain meets ocean and time seems to slow to the rhythm of waves. Let your breath deepen, your shoulders drop, and simply allow the story to wash over you, like the gentle rain we'll walk through together. But not yet. For now, there's only this bench, this view, this moment suspended between the grey sky and the restless water below. A gull lands on a rock 20 feet away. It faces the wind, rain streaming off its white feathers, completely unbothered by conditions that would send most creatures searching for shelter. Its yellow eye catches yours briefly before looking away, dismissing you as neither threat nor opportunity. There's something admirable in its indifference, the way it simply exists in the weather without complaint or commentary. You rise eventually, though nothing forces the decision. The path simply calls again, that quiet invitation to see what lies beyond the next curve. Your legs feel heavy in a pleasant way, muscles relaxed from sitting, blood flowing steadily as you begin to move. The trail narrows slightly here, hugging closer to the cliff edge. To your right, the drop is sheer, 40 feet of rock face down to where waves explode against stone in bursts of white foam. There's no danger if you stay on the path, but the proximity to that edge makes you more aware of each footstep, more present in your body's movement through space. Rain has made the path slick in places. You adjust your pace without thinking, feet finding purchase on stones worn smooth by countless travellers before you. Each step becomes deliberate, a small meditation in balance and attention. The walking stick proves useful here, a third point of contact that turns you into something more stable than human, a tripod moving slowly forward. The sound changes as you round the bend. The open ocean roar softens, replaced by something more complex. Water moving through channels, waves arriving at different angles, echo and reverberation as sound bounces off rock faces you can't yet see. Then the path opens into something unexpected. A cove appears below, tucked into the coastline like a secret. The cliffs curve around it in a rough semicircle, creating a natural amphitheatre where water surges and retreats across smooth stones. The beach, if you can call it that, consists entirely of rounded rocks, each one polished by endless tumbling in the waves. They range from fist-size to larger than your head, in shades of grey and brown, and occasional, startling white. The waves here sound different. Each one rushes up the stone beach with a distinct rattling, rolling sound, as thousands of rocks shift and tumble. Then the water retreats, and the sound repeats in reverse, a prolonged musical clattering that somehow contains both chaos and order. It's hypnotic, that sound, ancient and utterly unique to places like this. A narrow path switchbacks down the cliff face, steep but manageable. You take it slowly, using roots and rocks as handholds, the walking stick now more hindrance than help. The rain continues, softer now, almost a mist. Reaching the bottom feels like entering a different world. The cliffs rise on three sides, their tops lost in low clouds. The cove focuses all sound inward, wave after wave arriving, that rattling rush of stone, the hollow echo bouncing off rock walls. Rain patters on your jacket. Water drips from cliff faces in thin streams. You walk to where the stones meet the water's edge. Each wave approaches with visible power, swelling upward before crashing down. The rocks absorb the impact, shifting and settling, then shifting again as the water pulls back. It's mesmerizing to watch all that force, all that motion, and these stones simply accept it, have accepted it for millennia, will continue accepting it long after you've gone. Bending down, you pick up a stone. It fits perfectly in your palm, smoothed into an oval by uncountable years of tumbling. Grey with a white band circling it like a ring. The surface feels good against your skin, cool, solid, real. You close your fingers around it, and the stone warms slightly from your body heat. How long did this take? How many tides rolled this particular rock back and forth across this beach before it achieved this perfect smoothness? Thousands of years, probably. Tens of thousands. The number becomes meaningless. What matters is the result. This object that fits your hand like it was made for holding. You keep the stone, slipping it into your pocket where it settles with a satisfying weight. A souvenir, though that word feels wrong. More like a reminder. Proof that patience and persistence can smooth even the sharpest edges. The rain intensifies briefly, drumming harder against your shoulders. You turn your face upward, letting drops hit your cheeks and forehead. The water is fresh, clean, carrying the taste of distance. Clouds that formed far out over the ocean, drifted landward, released their burden here, on this particular stretch of coast. Against the cliff wall, you notice a shallow cave, barely deep enough to qualify as such, more like an overhang, but it offers shelter, a place to stand where the rain can't quite reach. You move toward it, feet crunching across the shifting stones, each step requiring balance and attention. Inside the shallow space, the sound changes again. The cave mouth frames the cove like a painting. Grey water, grey sky, the endless dance of waves against stone. From here, you can watch without being fully in it, observer rather than participant. Welcome to Sleepy Stories, the place where stories aren't meant to be finished. I'm Arthur, and tonight I'll be reading you a relaxing, sleepy story written by Pumby. We continue our journey along a rugged coastline, where grey waters meet ancient cliffs, and the sound of waves on stone creates its own meditation. Let yourself settle in, breathe deeply, and allow the rhythm of this story to guide you toward rest. The overhang smells of mineral and salt, damp rock that hasn't felt direct sunlight in who knows how long. Water seeps down the cliff face in thin films, finding paths through microscopic cracks, pooling briefly in shallow depressions before continuing downward. You can trace these water routes with your eyes, darker streaks against lighter stone, evidence of flow repeated so many times it's worn visible channels into the rock itself. Sitting on a flat boulder just inside the shelter, you feel the stone's coldness through your clothes, solid and unyielding, yet somehow comfortable. Your breathing has synchronized with the waves without you noticing when it happened. Inhale as water gathers. Exhale as it crashes and retreats. The pattern is older than human memory, and your body recognizes it at some fundamental level. A bird appears at the cave mouth. Dark wings, white breast, a rock pipit, perfectly adapted to this harsh environment. It lands on a stone ledge, tilts its head, regards you with one bright eye. Then it's gone, darting back into the rain, without apparent concern for the weather. Living here means accepting water from above and below, wind that never fully stops, the constant negotiation between land and sea. You could stay in this shallow cave indefinitely. There's something womb-like about it, protected yet open, safe yet wild. But the rain is easing again, turning to drizzle, then to mere dampness in the air. Time to move. Standing requires effort after sitting on cold stone. Your muscles protest briefly, then warm as you step back onto the beach. The tide has changed. You can see it in the wet line on the rocks, higher now than when you arrived. Water claims more of the cove with each passing minute. This place transforms constantly, never the same beach twice. You walk along the water's edge, parallel to the cliffs, heading toward the far side of the cove, where the rocks give way to something that might be another path upward. Each step requires attention. These stones roll and shift underfoot, some stable, others treacherous. You develop a rhythm, test the stone, commit your weight, move forward. Test, commit, move. It becomes almost automatic. Tide pools appear between larger rocks, miniature ecosystems, each one complete. Leaning over, you peer into crystalline water barely 6 inches deep. Anemones cling to submerged stone, their tentacles waving in invisible currents. Tiny fish dart between shadows. A hermit crab drags its borrowed shell across the bottom, oblivious to your observation. Entire lives being lived in spaces you could step across without noticing. The complexity staggers you when you really look. How many creatures inhabit this single pool? Hundreds probably. Thousands if you count the microscopic ones. All of them adapted to this specific environment. Water that's sometimes fresh with rain, sometimes salt with spray, temperature fluctuating with sun and shade. The constant risk of predation from above. Yet here they are, thriving in what seems like impossible conditions. Further along, the beach narrows. The cliff leans outward here, creating another sheltered space. Driftwood has accumulated against the rocks, smooth grey branches stripped of bark, pieces of timber from some long-forgotten structure, all of it worn and weathered into abstract sculpture. Someone has stacked stones into a small cairn. You add one of your own, balancing it carefully on top. The action feels right, even necessary. A tiny mark of your passage through this place. Beyond the driftwood, you find what you are hoping for, a break in the cliff. Not quite a path, more like a vertical scramble where erosion and rockfall have created something climbable. Handholds present themselves naturally. Footholds too, though they require stretching and reaching. You begin climbing, moving slowly upward, testing each hold before trusting it with your full weight. Halfway up, you pause on a small ledge. From here, the cove spreads below in its full scope. The beach looks smaller from this height, more vulnerable, wedged between massive rock walls and endless ocean. Waves continue their work, indifferent to observation. The rain has stopped completely now, though clouds still hang low and heavy. You notice how the water changes colour with depth. Pale green in the shallows, where waves break. Deeper blue-grey further out, then nearly black where the seafloor drops away beyond the cove's mouth. Somewhere out there, beyond sight, the continental shelf falls into true depths, miles down. Pressure that would crush you instantly. Darkness absolute and eternal. But here, in this liminal zone where land meets water, life concentrates itself. Every tide brings nutrients. Every wave rearranges the stones. Nothing stays the same, yet nothing fundamentally changes. The dance continues, has always continued, will continue long after the last human observer has turned to dust. Climbing higher, you reach the cliff-top path again. The wind hits immediately, stronger up here, unobstructed by rock walls. It carries the scent of heather and gorse, replacing the salt mineral smell of the cove below. Your legs feel the climb, not painful, just aware, used, alive. The path continues along the cliff edge, heading north. You follow it, the stone from the beach still heavy in your pocket, each step carrying you further into whatever comes next. Welcome to Sleepy Stories, the place where stories aren't meant to be finished. I'm Arthur, and tonight I'll be reading you a relaxing, sleepy story written by Pumby. We continue our journey along the wild coastline, where windswept cliffs meet the restless sea. Let yourself sink deeper into comfort as we wander these ancient paths together. The clifftop trail narrows ahead, forcing single-file passage between gorse bushes on one side and the precipitous drop on the other. You move carefully, boots finding purchase on rock worn smooth by countless previous travellers. Below, the cove you just left fades from view, hidden by the curve of the headland. Already it feels like something from hours ago rather than minutes. Distance compresses time out here, or maybe expands it. Hard to tell which. The path angles upwards slightly, climbing toward a high point you can see perhaps a quarter-mile ahead. The effort warms you despite the wind. Your breath comes deeper, more deliberate, not laboured, just present, noticeable, alive. Seabirds wheel overhead, their cries carrying across the open air. You can't identify the species. Does it matter? They're wild things doing what wild things do, indifferent to names and classifications. Reaching the summit of this section, you stop. The view demands it. Behind you, the coastline you've already walked curves southward, a succession of headlands and hidden coves, each one probably as perfect as the last. Ahead, more of the same extends northward, until distance and sea haze blur everything into uncertainty. The scale of it strikes you freshly. Miles of this, tens of miles, all of it shaped by the same patient forces, wind, water, time. A weathered bench sits just off the path, bolted into solid rock, someone's memorial judging by the small plaque attached to the backrest. You don't read the inscription. It feels intrusive somehow, but you sit anyway, because the bench is here for sitting, for moments exactly like this when legs need rest and eyes need time to truly see. The ocean stretches to the horizon. In every direction, it's visible. Grey today, textured with white caps, but you can imagine it under different conditions. Flat calm at dawn, reflecting pink sky. Storm-churned and violent, waves reaching heights that would terrify. Sparkling blue under summer sun. Looking almost Mediterranean until you touch it and remember how far north you really are. The sea contains all these versions simultaneously, just waiting for the right conditions to reveal them. You've been sitting for 5 minutes when you notice movement on the water. A dark shape surfaces, then disappears. Surfaces again, closer this time. Seal, has to be. The way it moves, the rounded head, the curious approach. It seems to be paralleling the shore, hunting probably, working the zone where fish congregate. You watch it dive and reappear, following its progress along the coast until it rounds the next headland and vanishes from sight. Standing, you feel the stiffness in your legs from the bench's cold surface. Movement fixes it quickly. The path descends here, dropping toward another beach, larger than the cove, more exposed facing directly into the prevailing wind. No shelter here. The waves hit harder, louder, their rhythm more aggressive. The sand is coarser too, mixed with pebbles and broken shell fragments that crunch underfoot. This beach holds evidence of human presence. A concrete structure sits half buried in the dunes. Military, from the look of it. World War II probably, one of countless defensive positions that line this coast. The enemy never came, not here, but the concrete remains anyway, slowly being reclaimed by sand and grass. Rust stains streak down from metal reinforcements. Graffiti covers one wall, faded now, barely legible. Someone's name, a date, a crude drawing. You walk past it without stopping. History feels less important than the immediate present. The wind on your face, the sound of waves, the slight ache developing in your left knee that suggests you've been walking longer than you realised. How long exactly? 2 hours? 3? The sun, hidden behind clouds, offers no clear indication. Time has become elastic, measured in beaches and headlands, rather than minutes and hours. The far end of this beach terminates in a rock field. Not a cliff this time, just a gradual rise of boulders, some the size of houses, others merely large. They've fallen from somewhere above over centuries, tumbling down to create this chaotic landscape of stone. Channels wind between them, narrow passages where water flows at high tide. Now, at lower water, they're merely damp, slick with algae, treacherous if you're careless. You're not careless. Each step is considered, tested, verified before committing weight. The rocks are stable despite their appearance. They've been here longer than you've been alive, probably longer than anyone currently living has been alive. They'll be here long after. That permanence offers strange comfort. Everything changes, yes, but slowly. So slowly that human lifetimes barely register. Emerging from the rock field, you find yourself on yet another beach. Smaller again, more intimate. The cliffs here are different. Layered sedimentary rock, tilted at dramatic angles, creating striped patterns that speak of unimaginable geological forces. You run your hand along one exposed layer, feeling the texture change between different strata. This one rough like sandpaper, the next smooth, almost waxy. The one above that crumbly, leaving residue on your fingers. The tide is turning. You can tell by how the waves behave, reaching slightly higher with each set, erasing the marks of your footprints in the wet sand. Soon this beach will be impassable, cut off by water, but for now you have time. Welcome to Sleepy Stories, the place where stories aren't meant to be finished. I'm Arthur, and tonight I'll be reading you a relaxing, sleepy story written by Pumby. We're continuing our peaceful walk along a remote coastline, where time moves differently, and the rhythm of waves guides each step. Let yourself sink deeper into comfort as we wander these final shores together. You check the waterline again. Still time, though not much. The decision makes itself. Continue forward rather than retreat. There's always another way around, another path that reveals itself when needed. The cliffs curve inward here, creating a natural amphitheatre where sound behaves strangely. Waves echo, repeating themselves, overlapping until it becomes impossible to distinguish original from reflection. You pause in the centre of this space, turning slowly, listening to the acoustic properties shift with your movement. Gulls pass overhead, their calls amplified and distorted by the rock walls. Then they're gone, and only the waves remain. The path upwards starts here, carved into the cliff face. Not modern, too irregular for that, but old, worn smooth by decades of feet. Someone maintains it though. Wooden steps bridge the steepest sections, weathered grey but solid. Your hand finds the rope railing, thick as your wrist, secured at intervals with metal brackets. You climb slowly, not from exhaustion, but from preference. Each step upward reveals more of the coastline behind you. The beaches you crossed appear now in sequence, a chain of crescents connected by headlands and rock fields. Higher still, the wind strengthens with elevation, no longer blocked by the cliffs themselves. It comes from the southwest, carrying salt and something else. Ozone maybe, that electric scent that precedes weather changes. You stop on a wider section of path, catching your breath, studying the horizon. The sky has darkened toward the west. Not threatening exactly, but promising rain eventually. How far away? Hours, probably. Time enough. The top arrives unexpectedly. One moment you're climbing, the next you're standing on level ground, grass under your feet instead of rock. The landscape here is different entirely. Moorland stretches inland, rolling and open, marked by gorse bushes and the occasional wind-twisted tree. A different world from the beaches below, yet connected by the same persistent wind. You follow a faint track through the grass. Not a proper path, just a line where feet have passed often enough to compress the vegetation. It parallels the cliff edge, staying back a safe distance, occasionally offering glimpses down to the water far below. The perspective shift is startling. What felt intimate and enclosed down there appears vast from up here. The beaches shrink to thin strips. The waves reduce to white lines of foam. A stone marker appears ahead, ancient, predating any modern survey. Someone stood here centuries ago and decided this spot mattered enough to mark. Why? No obvious reason presents itself. No junction, no landmark, nothing to distinguish this location from any other along this stretch. Yet the stone remains, patient and inexplicable. You sit beside it, using it as a backrest. The ground is dry despite the grass, the underlying rock absorbing and releasing moisture in patterns dictated by geology rather than weather. From this vantage point, the coastline extends in both directions, bending away until distance and haze obscure the details. You've walked maybe 7 miles, perhaps 8. The return journey will be different, walking toward the setting sun, seeing everything from reversed angles, but not yet. For now, sitting is enough. The wind continues its constant presence, neither increasing nor decreasing, just steady, reliable. Below, waves maintain their rhythm. Above, clouds move in slow procession, everything operating on its own timeline, indifferent to observation. Your breathing has synchronized with something. The waves maybe, or the wind, or some deeper pattern beneath both. In, out, steady, calm. No urgency, no destination. Just this moment, this place, this particular arrangement of stone and sea and sky that will never occur exactly this way again. A rabbit appears from behind a gorse bush, spots you, freezes. Its nose twitches, processing information. You remain still. After 10 seconds, it decides you're not a threat and continues its path across the grass, hopping in that distinctive pattern, pausing periodically to check its surroundings. It disappears into another bush. The grass where it passed still moves slightly, marking its invisible progress. The light is changing now, not dramatically, but perceptibly. The sun, still hidden behind clouds, is nevertheless descending. Shadows grow longer, softer, colours mute. The sea shifts from blue-grey to something darker, more uniform. Soon it will be time to return, to retrace the path down the cliff, across the beaches, back to wherever you started. But that moment hasn't arrived yet. You close your eyes, feeling the wind on your face, hearing the distant percussion of waves against rock. The stone marker presses against your back, solid and ancient. The grass beneath you holds the day's accumulated warmth. Everything is exactly as it should be. Temporary, fleeting, yet somehow permanent in memory. This is the point where the walk ends. Not because you've run out of coastline, but because you've found what you came for, without knowing you were searching. Peace maybe, or perspective, or simply distance from whatever drives the usual days. The specifics don't matter. What matters is this, the feeling of arrival without destination, the satisfaction of movement without purpose, the deep quiet that comes from spending hours with nothing but wind and water for company. When you open your eyes, the world is still there, unchanged and perfect. Welcome to Sleepy Stories, the place where stories aren't meant to be finished. I'm Arthur, and tonight I'll be reading you a relaxing, sleepy story written by Pumby. We've reached the end of our coastal journey, where moorland meets the edge of the world. Let your body sink completely into rest now, allowing everything you've experienced to settle like sand after a wave retreats. You stand slowly, muscles stiff but satisfied. The stone marker remains as you found it, patient witness to countless passers-by. Your hand rests on its weathered surface briefly, a wordless acknowledgement. Then you turn inland, away from the cliff edge, following the faint track through the grass. The return doesn't retrace your steps exactly. Instead, the path curves through the moorland, offering a different perspective. What you saw facing the sea now appears from behind. The sun breaks through the clouds finally, low and golden, painting everything in warm light that seems impossible after hours of grey. The grass glows, the gorse flowers turn electric yellow, even the distant water transforms, reflecting copper and amber. You walk without hurry. Each step feels lighter now, as though the miles have worn away something unnecessary. The wind has shifted, coming from behind now, gently pushing you forward. A gift. The moorland gives way gradually to fields divided by ancient stone walls, then to a narrow lane bordered by hedgerows, thick with blackberry brambles. A farmhouse appears in the distance, smoke rising from its chimney in a straight line. before the wind catches and disperses it. Lights glow in the windows, warm and welcoming against the approaching dusk. You're not going there, but its presence comforts anyway. Evidence that people live here, make homes here, find their own peace in this landscape. The lane meets a wider road. Your car sits where you left it this morning, or yesterday, or whenever it was you began. Time has lost its usual meaning. The stone from the beach still weighs in your pocket. You pull it out, studying its smooth surface one final time in the fading light. Then you place it carefully on the stone wall beside the road. Someone else will find it, wonder at its origin, perhaps pocket it themselves, or maybe it will sit there for years, slowly accumulating lichen, becoming part of the wall itself. You don't look back as you drive away. The coastal path remains, unchanged by your passage, ready for the next person who needs what it offers. The waves continue their ancient rhythm. The cliffs stand patient against the wind. Everything you experience today is already becoming memory, but the feeling remains. That deep quiet, that sense of having walked yourself into a different state of being. The road curves inland, and the sea disappears from view, but you carry it with you now. The sound of waves on stone, the taste of salt air, the feeling of wind that never stops. These things have become part of you, stored somewhere deeper than conscious thought. On days when the world feels too loud, too fast, too much, you'll remember this walk, this coast, this perfect stretch of time when nothing mattered except the next step, the next breath, the next wave breaking against ancient rock. Night settles as you drive. Stars begin appearing in the darkening sky. Behind you, the coastline fades into darkness, but the path remains, waiting, always waiting, for you or someone like you who needs to remember that there are still places where time moves differently, where the only agenda is the tides, where peace isn't something you chase but something you walk into, one slow step at a time.